It was all against von der Leyen in the first debate held in Maastricht ahead of the European elections. 7 candidates for the helm of the Commission and the current president of the EU executive arm tried to win over voters before the June ballot. The pressure was intense for von der Leyen, with barbs from left and right. The EPP candidate didn't deny a possible after-election collaboration with the hard right-wing political party ECR.
It's the European Parliament that has to find majorities. It depends very much on how the composition of the Parliament is and who is in what group.
What?
Oh. Values and rights cannot be divided according to some political arrangements. Either you can deal with the extreme right because you need them, or you say clearly there is no deal possible because they do not respect the fundamental rights our Commission has fought for. And we have fought, for instance...
But von der Leyen was not the only one to feel the pressure. The candidate from the far-right Identity and Democracy Party was also in the spotlight.
The ID group. All the problems that we're seeing now with Russia buying influence to the AfD, it's your ID group. Maybe before you are teaching everyone, clean up your own house.
The European left's candidate, Walter Beyer, was applauded by the audience when he asked von der Leyen about Israel.
Avoided the question which I was asking to you. When will the European Union put sanctions on Israel to stop the war in Gaza?
To see how many innocent civilians are dying, especially children, is unbearable and it is unacceptable. And therefore we need a ceasefire. We need the ceasefire now, we need the release of the hostages now, and we need to sit down and work on a two-state solution because this is the only solution that will bring peace to the region.
Well, a robust enough debate tonight, particularly on some of the issues around common foreign and defence policy, how to fund Ukraine, whether there's enough criticism by the EU of the high death toll among civilians in Gaza, how to tackle anti-Semitism across Europe, and also the environment, how to protect the Green Deal, while also answering the demands of farmers. No doubt, these issues will be thrashed out again and again over the next few weeks. Shona Murray, Euronews, Maastricht.
The next debate of the candidates will be held on the 23rd of May in Brussels.
At least 4 people have been killed in a Russian missile strike that hit a Gothic-style building known as the Harry Potter Castle in the southern Ukrainian city of Odessa. Residents reportedly didn't have enough time to take shelter as air raid alerts only happened a few minutes before the strike.
Тип його встановлюється, для цього є відповідна експертиза вибухотехніків. Зараз працюють усі відповідні служби, Державна служба надзвичайних ситуацій, усуває наслідки цього удару. Так само працюють слідчі органи, тому що це черговий воєнний злочин.
In Kyiv on Monday, NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said the alliance's members had failed to deliver what they promised to Ukraine in good time, allowing Russia to exploit battlefield advantages.
Сьогодні саме про оперативність багато було і на перемовинах з генсеком НАТО, з Єнсом Столтенбергом, вчасне постачання зброї для наших воїнів, вчасні і достатні рішення про ППО для України. Це те, що необхідно просто зараз для захисту життя.
Those comments come as Ukrainian forces struggle against Russia on the battlefield, with Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky saying the situation on the front line had worsened and that his forces had withdrawn from some positions in Donetsk. Meanwhile, in Geneva, at a gathering of the International Meeting of Mine Action, officials laid out the challenges civilians living in conflict or post-conflict environments face.
In Ukraine, because of the nature and the intensity of the conflict, we're often seeing double or triple or even quadruple amputees. And a lot of those injured are in their 20s and 30s.
The UN says around 60 million people in 60 countries live from one day to the next, unsure if they will step on a landmine or unexploded ordnance left over from a conflict.
defense questions, and I told them I have no ideas.
The ALDE party lead candidate has called for considerably more EU support for Ukraine. German Liberal Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann told Euronews that military aid up until now has not sufficiently helped Ukraine in being successful. She especially blamed outgoing EU Commission President and fellow German politician Ursula von der Leyen for wasting time in responding to the war.
I'm absolutely disappointed because, you know, she was for 6 years, really a long time, she was the defense minister of Germany. And she knows what happens if you lose time. Why she didn't talk about military security when she started to be the president of the Commission. Because she knows this topic. She has an idea what happened.
Rights and so on. Strack-Zimmermann also painted a negative picture of von der Leyen's time in office. She said her arrival in the race to head the EU executive was disappointing, especially when it came to security, the economy and the rule of law in Hungary.
I mean, this is absolutely right. But you have to see always that... It's a question that everybody was very irritated that she paid 10 billion euro for Mr. Orban. In questions of the Ukraine. Everybody was really shocked about it. It's really unbelievable. 27 countries in Europe, and I tell you, we could do it.
Strack-Zimmermann, who belongs to Germany's Free Democratic Party, which is part of the country's three-way governing coalition, is a defense expert and a sharp critic of Russia's war against Ukraine.
It's even when Barack Obama was president, he said it.
Students have staged a protest in support of Palestine near the prestigious Sorbonne University in Paris. Taking their cue from the university campus protest movement across the United States, students in Paris chanted slogans in support of the Palestinians living in Gaza.
I'm inspired by the students in Columbia, in Harvard and in MIT, etc., that are very strong and that are saying that they want to fight for justice and for the peace in Palestine, but also for the liberation of the Palestine. And I'm proud of them, even though they are very repressed. And we see that the police is trying to kill the movement by arresting a lot of people.
Last week, protests broke out at the Paris Institute of Political Studies. Students blocked access to a campus building, prompting administrators to move all classes online. Pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli groups then faced off, prompting riot police to step in to separate them. Meanwhile, students at Columbia University in New York have defied a deadline set by officials to break up their encampment and end their protests or face suspension. The university's president said on Monday that talks with protest organizers had failed.
Free, free, free Palestine! We will not be moved by these intimidation tactics. You can see outside you now that the students are mobilized. There's hundreds of them here today. They will not be moved. We demand divestment. We will not be moved unless by force.
The campus protest movement ignited at Columbia 2 weeks ago when police tried to break up a small group of protesters who had pitched tents. That sparked a wave of solidarity protests across America, with similar demonstrations taking place on campuses in at least 22 states. British and Irish officials met on Monday as tensions rise over the movement of asylum seekers from the UK to Ireland. Irish Premier Simon Harris said that Ireland will not provide a loophole for anybody else's migration challenges. But officials from both sides said their governments are committed to working together. Irish officials say around 80% of asylum seekers entering Ireland now come across the land border from Northern Ireland.
The European Union must accept new members from its eastern flank and the Western Balkans or face a new Iron Curtain, Charles Michel has said. The European Council President spoke to Euronews as the bloc celebrates 20 years since the so-called Big Bang enlargement of 2004, when 10 countries with a combined population of 75 million were granted EU membership.
enlargement is vital for the future of the EU, because without enlargement, this is in fact a risk for a new Iron Curtain, and this would be extremely dangerous if you would have an unstable neighborhood with a lack of prosperity, a lack of economic development. These are a common interest, the candidate countries and the EU, to make progress, to speed up. I am confident because I feel that the leaders, a vast majority of them, they are absolutely convinced this is important for the future.
9 countries are waiting in the wings to join the European Union, including war-torn Ukraine. But the accession process is long and complex, with steps on the path to full-fledged membership requiring the unanimous approval of all EU member states. Hungary has already threatened to wield its veto power to block Ukraine's accession. But Michel is confident that it won't stop the EU from fast-tracking candidate countries' bids.
For instance, we've used the constructive abstention, which is giving the possibility for a country to say, look, I don't like, I'm not very comfortable with this decision, and I make public my opinion, but I don't want to block the vast majority of the member states which would like to make progress in a certain field, a certain domain.
Michel has previously said that the EU has to be ready to accept new members by 2030. But he said this week that the most advanced countries could already join the bloc by the end of this decade.
Euronews. The news